For this video lesson, we're going to change fractions into decimals or decimals into fractions. At the end of the video lesson, the learner expresses rational numbers from fractional form to decimal form and vice versa. So remember that in a number line, hindi lamang yan mga integers. Meron din tayong mga decimals and fractions. And if we're going to zoom that, we can clearly see that there are fractions in between each integers, just like 1/2, 5/4, and 21/10. These fractions can also be written as decimals, just like 0.5, 1.25, 2.1. The same thing, we can also rewrite decimals into fractions. Since we are just rewriting them, they still have the same value. So that is what we're going to do for today. So let's deal first on how to change fraction form to decimal form. Recall that a fraction is a rational number of the form a over b, which means a is to b or a divided by b, where a is the numerator while b is the denominator. And remember that a fraction represents part of a whole. So dito, I have three examples. Example 1 and example 3 are called proper fractions because the numerator is less than the denominator, while number 2 is an improper fraction since the numerator is higher than the denominator. Kahit na proper or improper fractions man yan, they still have the same method on how to change fraction into decimal form, and that is by using the long division method. So to convert a fraction to decimal, we will divide the numerator by its denominator. That means the numerator will be the dividend while the denominator will be the divisor. Okay, so since gagamit tayo ng long division method, recall that the dividend is inside the division bar while the divisor is on the outside. And remember the rule in the long division method, we have DMS BD, divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. And of course, repeat the process if needed. So here, 1 divided by 4 cannot be. So we need to add 0 after 1, but of course, do not forget to put first the decimal point. Since may decimal point tayo dito, automatically lalagyan din natin ito sa taas or sa quotient. So here, 10 divided by 4 is 2. Next is to multiply. 2 times 4 is 8. Then we subtract, that is 2, and then we can continue to add 0 and repeat the process. 20 divided by 4 is 5, and 5 times 4 is 20. There's no more remainder. And now we have 0.25. Since we don't have a whole number here, it is proper to put 0 before the decimal point. So here, 1/4 is equal to the decimal 0.25. Next, number 2, 12/5. Even if improper fraction pa ito, ganun pa rin ang process. The numerator 12 will be inside the division bar, while 5 will be outside. So we follow the rule DMS BD. Divide 12 divided by 5, 2, and 2 times 5, 10. Subtract, that is 2. And since we still have a remainder, we can continue the division process by adding decimal point and 0, and may decimal point din sa taas. So bring down 20 divided by 5, that is 4, and 4 times 5 is 20. So here we have 2.4. And number 3, 3/8 means 3 divided by 8. Again, 3 cannot be divided to 8, so add decimal point and 0 and then divide. 30 divided by 8, 3, and 3 times 8 is 24. After multiplying, subtract. So this one is 6. Add 0 to continue the division process. 60 divided by 8, 7. 7 times 8 is 56. Subtract is 4, and then continue the process. 0. 40 divided by 8, 5, and 5 times 8 is 40. So the answer here is 0.375. So that's how we change fraction to decimal form. Notice that the decimals here are terminating decimals. When we say terminating, they have finite number of digits. Ibig sabihin, bilang lang yung mga digits na meron sila. Kaya naman wala ng remainder at tapos agad ang ating division process. But we have some fractions na hindi terminating. So here, meron pa rin tayong improper fraction, proper fraction, and mixed fraction or mixed number. Still, we will use the same method, which is the long division process. So pakita naman natin dito, 8/3. So ganun pa rin, yung numerator is nasa loob, while ang denominator ay nasa labas. And we still need to follow the rule for long division. Divide, multiply, subtract, bring down, and repeat the process if needed. So 8 divided by 3, 2. 2 times 3 is 6. Subtract. And since may remainder, pwede tayong mag-add ng decimal point at 0 and then continue the process. 20 divided by 3, 6. 6 times 3 is 18. Subtract. That's 2. Add another 0 and then continue to divide. Notice na paulit-ulit na may remainder na 2 at kahit ulitin pa natin na magdagdag ng 0 at mag-divide pa dyan, the answer, the process will still remain the same. So here, we can say that the answer here is 2.6666 and so on, so forth. Next, number 5. 2/11 means 2 divided by 11. So here, we cannot divide 2 by 11, so we can add decimal point and 0. 20 divided by 11 is 1. Multiply, subtract, then add 0. Divide, so we can have 8 here. 8 times 11, that's 88. Subtract 2. Add another 0 to continue the division process. That's 1 times 11. That's 11. Notice na paulit-ulit na nagiging remainder yung 2 at yung 9. So we can see na paulit-ulit yung 1/8, 1/8 sa sagot. So the decimal here is 0.1818 and so on, so forth. Next, number 6. Since we have a mixed fraction here, or a mixed number, it means 2 and 1/6. Pwede naman na ito na lang ang ating gawing decimal. At i-add na lang siya sa whole number 2. Which means 1 divided by 6. 1 divided by 6 cannot be, so add decimal point and 0 and then divide, multiply, subtract. And then add another 0, continue the process, divide. 6 times 6, 36. Continue the process. Notice that even if we continue the process, there will still be 4 as the remainder, which means magko-continue yung 6 dito. That is why here, the decimal point is 0.1666. Pero since we still have 2 as the whole number, i-add pa natin yan dito. So therefore, the answer here is 2.1666 and so on, so forth. So here, you can see that the decimals here are not terminating because the decimal number continues infinitely. So actually, beside from being non-terminating, pwede din natin itong makonsider na repeating decimals. Ibig sabihin, may mga paulit-ulit na digits sa decimal na ito. They are repeating and non-terminating. So in a decimal, we have the word repeated, which is the digit that repeats itself, and we use a bar or a vinculum to be placed over a repeated para hindi na tayo paulit-ulit na magsulat ng number or digit na iyon. Example number 4, the repeated here is 6. That means we can just put a bar or a vinculum above it, and we can just rewrite it as 2.6 with a bar above. That means yung 6 ay paulit-ulit. In number 5, we notice that yung 1 and 8 yung paulit-ulit. That means we will put a bar on these digits, and this will become 0.18 with a bar above. And the last one, 2 and 1, 6. Ang umuulit lang naman dito is yung 6. It will be equal to 2.16, pero yung bar niya is nasa 6 lang kasi ito lamang yung umuulit. So remember, when we change fraction to decimal form, we simply use the long division method. So numerator divided by denominator. Pero depende na lang kung ang sagot ay terminating or repeating or non-terminating. Kapag repeating, maglalagay ng bar or vinculum sa taas. So, for now, gawin naman natin yung kabaliktaran. Let's change decimals into fractions. We call that a decimal is a system of counting that is based on the number 10 or 10th parts and power of 10. So that is called the decimal system. A decimal number can be defined as a number whose whole number part and fractional part is separated by a dot called decimal point. I have here 3 examples. Yung mga numbers before the decimal point ay ang ating mga whole numbers, yung decimal point, yung nagsiseparate sa whole numbers, and yung fractional part. At yan yung i-convert natin later into fraction. So usually we read it as 2.3, 13.25, or 5.642. But recall that the proper way to read decimals is using the place value chart. You can put here 2.3 in the place value chart to read it carefully. The decimal point is read as end. So we read first the whole number followed by the decimal point or end, and then the digit after the decimal point together with its place value. So the first one is read as 2 and 3 tenths because the place value of the last digit is tenths. Another 13.25, 13 here and 25 here. So the place value here is hundreds. So this is read as 13 and 25 hundredths. And the last one is 5.642. The last digit is in the thousandths place. So this is read as 5 and 642 thousandths. So, nireview natin kung paano yan basahin kasi yung method na yan ang eksaktong way ng pag-transfer natin ng decimal into fraction form. Here, how to change decimal form to fraction form. Ang mga methods na ipipresent natin dito ay ang mga shortcut or simplest way na pwede nating magawa because I assume na somehow na-explain na ang pinaka-proper way on how to change that. Anyway, these shortcut ways also work. So here, we have the decimals and the method to convert that is to write them the way that they are read. So, basahin ulit natin and then kung paano basahin, ganun din ang pagsulat as a fraction. So, number 1, instead of 0.25, ano yung place value ng pinaka last digit? Hundredths. So this is read as 25 hundredths. That means ang fraction niya ay 25 over 100. 25 hundredths. So, ayan na yung fraction niya. But remember, we can write it in simplest form. So, to write it in simplest form, divide the numerator and denominator by its GCF, or the greatest common factor. That is the greatest number that can divide 25 and 100. So, ano nga bang makaka-divide dyan? So, we can have divided by 25. So 25 divided by 25 is 1. 100 divided by 25 is 4. We have 0.25 convert into fraction, that is 1/4. Number 2, we read 2.4 using the place value chart. So 4 is on the tenths place value. So this one is read as 2 and 4 tenths. That means 2 and 4 tenths. Dito, we can still simplify 4 and 10 by dividing the numerator and denominator by their GCF, that is 2. So 4 divided by 2, that is 2. 10 divided by 2, that is 5. And don't forget to copy the whole number. So 2.4 when written in fraction is 2 and 2/5. While number 3, that's 0.82. The place value of the last digit is hundredths, 82 over 100. So simplify if possible. What number can divide both the numerator and denominator? So I think they can be divided by 2. So that will be 41 over 50. So if there's no any number that can divide the numerator and denominator, that is already considered as the simplest form. So this one, 41 over 50. Okay? So ganun lang kadali mag-change ng decimal form into fraction form. But wait, as you notice, ang mga given dyan ay terminating decimals. So, syempre, madali lang yan. Kasi, kung ano yung pinakadulong digit, lalagyan lang natin ng place value sa baba, and then simplify. But how about if we have non-terminating and repeating decimals? So, remember na meron din tayong ibang klaseng decimal, just like the following, in which they are repeating and non-terminating decimals. So here, paano naman kapag ganito? We cannot use the method 1 because hindi natin alam yung pinaka-place value ng dulong digit. Kasi nga, this is non-terminating. So what I'm going to present to you is the short way ng pag-change ng decimal form into fraction form given na repeating and non-terminating decimals sila. So here is the method number 2. So for the first case, ito ay applicable lamang kapag yung decimals ay repeating and non-terminating at parehas yung digit na may bar, katulad ng example 1 and 2. So let's follow the steps. So here, write the number formed by the repeating digits. So ano nga ba yung repeating digit dito sa una? That is just 6. And then in the denominator, write as many 9s as the number of repeating digits in the decimal. So ilan nga ba yung nagre-repeat dito? Isa lamang. So isa lang yung 9 na isusulat natin. Pero we can still reduce it into its simplest form. So find the GCF. Ano makakadivide sa 6 and 9? That is 3. So 6 divided by 3, 2. 9 divided by 3 is 3. So the final answer here is 2/3. So you can check that in your calculator. 2 divided by 3, that will give you 0.666. Let's do that in number 2. Ano yung repeating digits dito? 2 and 6. Kung ilan yung repeating digits dito, ganun din yung number of 9s sa baba. So, since ang makakadivide lang sa 26 ay 2 and 13, at yung 9 naman ay hindi rin madidivide sa 2 or 13, this is already the final answer. So, this one is 26 over 99. And let's have the last example here. So, kapag may paulit-ulit na digit, just like 0.333, ilan yung muulit? Isa lang. And then, isa lang din yung 9 ilalagay natin. So, simplify, this will be 1/3. So, ayan ay applicable kapag lahat ng digits sa given ay umuulit. So, here, hiniwalay natin yung numbers 3 and 4 because these particular decimals have some digits na umuulit pero meron ding digit na hindi. Kaya we have another rule for that. And that is method 2, case 2. So, here we follow. In the denominator, write as many 9s as the number of repeating digits. So, ilan ba yung repeating digits dito sa 0.37? Ilan ba yung may bar? Isa lang. So, ganun din karami yung 9 na ilalagay natin sa denominator. And, add 0 after depending on the number of digits before the recurring 1. Sabi, dadagdag pa tayo ng 0 dito, depende kung ilan yung digit na hindi umuulit o bago yung umuulit na digits. So, ilan ba to? Isa lang. So, isang 0 lang yung ilalagay natin. And then, for the numerator, subtract the digit before the recurring digit. So, ano yung digit dito bago mag-umulit? So, that is 3 from the whole given digits. So, ano yung kabuang digit nito? That's 37. So, that will be 37 minus 3, 34 over 90. So, ito na yung fraction form niyan. Do not forget to simplify if possible. That can be divided to both is 2. 34 divided by 2 is 17. 90 divided by 2 is 45. We have the final answer, 17 over 45. Again, you can check that using your calculator kung lalabas ba talaga yung repeating decimals na to. So, let's do that in the last example. Follow ulit natin. Maglalagay ng 9 sa ilalim, depende kung ilan yung umuulit na digit. So, dito, meron tayong dalawa. So, dalawang 9 ang isusulat dyan. And then, magdadagdag ng 0, depende naman kung ilan yung hindi umuulit. So, dalawa din. And then, sa numerator, isasubtract natin yung digit na hindi umuulit, which is 25, minus yung buong given digits. So, that is 2526. So, 2,526 minus 25, that is 2,501 all over 9,900. So, I think there's no number that can divide the numerator and denominator. Wala na tong simplest form, which means this is the fraction form of this decimal. So remember that this method only applies to repeating and non-terminating decimals. So thank you for listening.